welcome. Good morning and welcome to this Thursday. I am Dr. Lisa Lindsay Wicker, your host for today at and with the Career Master Magazine's new show called Inside Career Success. I am thrilled and excited to be here today, and I am much more thrilled about our guests. Let's get started. Today's show is about high-performing, high-profile women, as you know, who give back, women who are lifting others up, women who are in the business of business, in the marketplace, compelling themselves to get it done. And so we're super excited about this platform. And we are absolutely about the business of advancing women's leadership. We will also feature men soon to come, men who are allies, men who help us support women, and men who absolutely advance women's leadership. Let me tell you a little about Career Mastered Magazine. Career Mastered Magazine is a quarterly publication that has been in the marketplace since 2018, launching in New York City, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Detroit, Michigan. Since that time, we've expanded globally. You can get the magazine in a number of venues, including Amazon, Issue, Career Master, Dr. Lisa Wicker, and so on. So in other words, it's accessible in both print and digital format. And so we are excited that we get to tell the story of high achieving women so that we can pave the way for the next generation of young women. Today, we're pleased to welcome into our studio none other than the remarkable Denise Brooks-Williams. She is with us, and I'm going to bring her on and then introduce you. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you this morning?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just going to take a moment to introduce you, and then we'll get right into the conversation.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. So Denise, as I said, is remarkable. She is a senior vice president and chief executive officer of Henry Ford Health System, the North Market, which includes hospitals and all ambulatory and other operations within southeastern Michigan's northern counties. In 2013, she joined Henry Ford Health System as president and CEO of the Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital. A native of Michigan, Ms. Brooks-Williams received her bachelor's and master's degrees in health services administration from the University of Michigan. She started her career in healthcare leadership as a management fellow at Mercy Hospital in Detroit, the Motor City. She has been active in numerous professional groups, including serving as president of National Association of Health Services Executives. She is also president of the Midwest chapter of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Most recently, she formerly served on the state of Michigan's Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Disparities. So we're so glad that you're here so we can chat about a number of things, your career success, your triumphs, your challenges, as well as tell us more about the healthcare industry and what's going on in terms of today's trends and things that we should be concerned about. And I'd like to again welcome you.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So let's just get into the convo. I love it. All right. And so what I've read and I'm really thrilled about is that in just over the last 2 years, Denise, Henry Ford selected you to fill a newly created position. Now, that in and of itself is news, okay? However, more than that, you hold the seat in the corner office. And so now you might say, well, that's not a whole lot. Well, for many of us who've been in the corporate hallways, who've navigated our way through, we know what that means to be in the corner office, and you are sitting in that corner office. So first of all, congratulations. Let's give you a clap. I have to do that.
Oh,
and then secondly, I want to ask you, first of all, that's an accomplishment. And I love giving people accolades when it is due. So I know you didn't get there just by popping a finger. It took some work, okay? But mastering your career oftentimes requires detours and pivots, and we all know that.
Mhm.
And I ask my guests to just take a glimpse back at your future self. Like, when did you see your future self, the one that you're experiencing at this very moment? And what did you really dream of as a girl in terms of your career? Let's just start there. A couple of questions there, but I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, I would definitely say my future self didn't necessarily include this role, right? When I started in healthcare as a little girl, I wanted to help people. I know that sounds real innocent and pure, but I definitely felt like I wanted to serve in some way. I had educators in my family. So the thing I thought I didn't want to do is teach. I had an aunt who worked in healthcare, and she worked as a medical assistant. But I saw through her just the joy that she had in helping, and she'd tell the stories about people that she served and partnered with. So that was kind of my first glimpse as a girl of what healthcare could be and what it could look like. So it was very simple, just help people.
Yeah.
What I visioned originally, quite honestly, was probably, and sometimes women do this, less than what I have today. So I always thought, oh, I want to be a vice president. That was like the aspiration. I think as time went on and people poured into me, then the vision grew. And I thought, hey, the more that I can do, the more that I can help and the broader I can serve.
Wow, that's amazing. And quite honestly, you have a huge responsibility. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the hospital, Henry Ford, and particularly what you're leading in terms of the health integrated system, and how many employees are you responsible for? Just give us an overview of your responsibilities.
Absolutely. So as you said, Henry Ford Health System, we are an integrated delivery system that's located right in the city of Detroit, is where our headquarters are, where I'm sitting right now. We have over 33,000 employees in the health system. I'm privileged and able to serve 8,000 of those. So the North Market is 6 counties, primarily with healthcare being delivered in Oakland and Macomb. We have health plan members in those other 4 counties. So I have responsibility for 2 acute care hospitals, 2 behavioral health hospital access points, 70 care delivery sites, which includes our pharmacies, our health centers, our optimized sites. And so from a collaborative perspective, I'm able to partner with a huge team that's delivering care in those communities. And we really are privileged to be able to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's such a huge responsibility when we talk about healthcare, and the fact that we're, going through this last couple of years with the coronavirus and the problems that we have. And so I'm going to just kind of hop into that just a little bit in terms of what you've seen with your lenses during these, I call it tumultuous times, because it's the unexpected. So tell us what you've seen in terms of the population that you serve. How have you had to assist, and what has your organization done to help with this pandemic?
Wow, there's a lot in that. But I think to your point, one, I'm just going to say gratitude, right, is part of what has been the journey, since March of 2020. I think when we all were just thrust into, hey, this is a pandemic and we've got to reach in, I think, and do things that we haven't normally done.
Right.
So what initially I would say we did from a Henry Ford Health System perspective, of course, is we served. And we really tried to join in with many other community partners in figuring out how to get testing into the community, how to support people in their homes, because immediately once we, determined the severity of the virus, we really just went in Michigan. So we spent a lot of time making sure that there was access, activating telehealth options, and then discovering that there were disparities, right? Not everyone had the same tools and resources in their homes or in their communities. So then we went into partnership. And how could we partner with our local health department, with our county health department, with our other healthcare partners to make sure that our community was safe and had access to the things that they needed. As the headlines showed, unfortunately, in Michigan, we had significant disparities, right? So when the virus really began to attack us, is what I choose to call it, people of color fared really poorly, 40% more deaths than our representation in the community. And that was what actually started and formed the coronavirus task force on racial disparities. And so I was privileged to serve. And of course, that service was because of my role, here at Henry Ford. And the work that we did there was absolutely around creating a safety net and trying to reverse those numbers, which I'm proud to say we were able to do that. A lot of it through education and public awareness and helping people to understand how the virus spread, helping people to understand what resources they had to know they had it. So if you had it, then you were able to isolate and not spread it further.
Yes.
And then also just access, right? Making sure that people who sometimes traditionally had problems receiving health care had easier paths to do that. So mobile units were stood up, and literally in partnership with Wayne State, we went into communities to help support people with testing and to help them in terms of knowing contact tracing and where, they might go to be safe. So just a tremendous, I think, rally in the Detroit and Michigan community to make sure that we were safe. And I think to your point, the pandemic isn't over, right? So our work really does continue. I think we come out of it, though, knowing a lot of the issues that have faced us have to be radically changed, right? So the health status that we have, and knowing that people of color can be afflicted more with chronic conditions.
Yes.
I think a lot of rallying around how do we close those gaps, right? So that we're healthier, because a healthier community can fight off, unfortunately, whatever the next virus might be, that comes in and creates that vulnerability.
Right. I mean, you mentioned so much in that, in terms of the rallying and education and bringing the community around. So that we can be on the right side of this thing. And it's far, far from over. Michigan, as you said, was hit hard. That's where I come from. And certainly watching from being in another state right now, you question like what's going on and how is it going to get better there, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're safe to say that things have improved. Am I right?
Well, they have and they haven't, unfortunately, right? So today, honestly, as I was driving in, we've reached a milestone in Wayne County, which is, where Detroit sits, and we are at 70% vaccination.
Okay.
But the part that we still have a gap, the city of Detroit is only at 45%.
Wow. That's work to be done.
Yeah. So the work is still there to be done to help people, hopefully, to understand the value of vaccines.
Right.
And how they will allow us, right, to perhaps not have to be on split screens,
but
be able to sit, in your beautiful living room and have this conversation, right? So if we want to be able to safely be with the people that we love, vaccines are a path, in that direction. So there's definitely still work to be done.
Oh, absolutely. Because you said some things there, if it's in the city of Detroit, that definitely tells me that, we have to get our community organizations to help, the churches and the community centers and
absolutely
the doctors and folk that are connected to that community that says, hey, here's the information you need, right?
Yes. And trusted partners like you, just helping people to understand. We've done some campaigns where we just have told our own stories, right?
Yeah.
And those of us that have made a choice to be vaccinated know it's not an easy choice, right?
No.
Because there is absolutely the fear of the unknown with anything that you do.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is knowing the deaths and the lives that have been lost as a result of the virus is one, thing that says with vaccines, at least if we still get the virus, our probability of life and health are so high. Absolutely. Versus if you don't have it. Over 80, I think it's actually over 90% of people who are still being hospitalized with coronavirus are unvaccinated.
Oh, wow. That in and of itself is a statement right there.
Yeah.
Now, talking about education, I'm going to ask, even though, I'm a Spartan, go white, go green, go white, I'm just going to say that. All right. We have this great rivalry with the big house over there with Michigan. And I know that's where you went to school. But under your leadership in a previous role, which was your CEO role at Henry Ford Wyandotte, I learned that you had a number of awards: the American 100 Best Hospital 3 consecutive years, U.S. News and World Report's Best Regional Hospital, and the Press Ganey Guardian of Excellent Award. First of all, congratulations. That takes leadership. It just doesn't show up. And so how would you describe your influence in the healthcare industry?
Wow. I want to hope and think that it's through my leadership and partnership. So those wonderful awards that you share, right? I shared that with that team because honestly, as you know, when you're the leader, hopefully you're setting the tone, you're creating the environment for people to do their best and be able to exceed expectations. And so that's what I really hope my influence, has been. You don't know that, but that is what you hope. I think I was on a call yesterday and we were talking about the Maya Angelou quote, right? That people may not always remember what we say, but they'll remember how we make them feel.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I do hope that that's the legacy that I'm leaving as I've, been in various parts of the healthcare industry, is really empowering people to do their best. And I tell people, right, I feel like I'm the coach. I want to give you the tools. I want to get things that you need, to be able to serve the communities that we're in, and then kind of get out of the way and let people do the great work that they're able to do.
Well, I mean, being a leader certainly does set the tone and mood of an organization. And if you don't put that in place, it certainly it resonates throughout the entire organization. So to get those awards says that obviously you're doing something right. So in terms of your education, I want to go back to that. If I'm that young woman or a man, for example, that wanted to be the CEO or become a CEO, what would I study, and how would I go about starting that path towards the example that you have already provided?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentor young people today, right, the paths are broader than they were when I was coming through. But definitely there are lots of public health programs now for undergraduate students. So I strongly recommend, right, that people look at our healthcare industry globally. Yes, leading hospitals, leading large systems, it has a business component to it. So some might say you can, pursue a business degree. Nothing wrong with that. But I definitely say understand the industry. Healthcare is incredibly unique. And I think that getting yourself prepared for what it means to be in service to communities is incredibly important. So I advise people to look into public health, but you can really approach it from any discipline. My undergraduate degree is in psychology. And I do tease sometimes that I think I use that degree a lot in terms of understanding people and understanding, how we function and how we contribute. But I definitely would say, look at your public health, look at your health services, degrees from an undergraduate perspective. And I think it's a great segue. And then it allows you, if you want to pursue an MBA or a master's in healthcare, you'll have that broad based already.
Right. And so as we talk about advancing women's leadership and particularly setting a path for the next generation, that information is very good for young women, hopefully that will view this even after the show, because it'll be available, but also for parents that might be listening. Denise has given you some information with regard to what to study. And I suppose, like any industry, myself coming from automotive, which was a male dominated field.
Yes.
I would imagine that perhaps in the higher ranks of a hospital administration, it would be similar.
Yes, definitely it is. Yeah.
So in that case, I guess my question would be, how did you find mentors and support in your path and your journey to the corner office?
Yeah, mentorship is so critical. And I think some of them I reached out to. So sometimes I invited people to be my mentor if they were willing to do so. And I did it by examples, right? So to your point, I looked to other women who had excelled, in the profession. And so I just sought their advisement. But clearly, I've had many male mentors who have also, been very willing. Some who approached me and said, absolutely, said, I see potential in you and I want to give you, opportunity or exposure, sometimes not inside the healthcare organization, but helping me to build governance skills. So I have one mentor who he has just been an incredible force around making sure that I've had board opportunities, which grow and develop you in a different way. So mentors have been critical to my success.
Right. Well, thinking about getting that seat at the table, I wrote the book Capacity, and I thank you for writing an accolade for that.
Absolutely.
Women oftentimes get a seat at the table, but their voice is not heard. I'd just like you to share a little bit about diplomatically what can women do when they feel that is happening to them.
You know what? I think that leadership as from a female perspective, is about allies, right? And so I've definitely had the experience of being the person in the room that, let's say at the middle of the conversation, I said something, but I heard it summarized at the end of the conversation by a different colleague who just maybe happened to be male. And what I used to do, is walk away from the table a little bit irritated, like, oh, I can't believe that. What I've started to do, and this has been a few years ago, is I just re-summarize it and I say, you know what? I love that you like the idea that I said earlier and that's how we're going to move forward. And so it sends a little message, right? So I think you have to be authentically yourself and be comfortable. I think it's a female leader that if your voice is not being heard through allies, right? So through partnering with others, kind of make them aware, hey, do you hear this when I'm in the meeting or is it just me? I do that sometimes as well, get allies that are hearing, where you're not being heard or what you're saying is not being, resonated and listened to. And then the other piece is being courageous enough to speak up.
That's right.
You have courage. You have to have courage.
I love it because I know you and I both have had this experience. And one of the things that I was talking with someone recently, they said, to get the rhythm and to get momentum in the C-suite and or on a board for women, you need at least 3.
Yes.
And I would agree. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we know that fact matters with a lot of things, right? It's with diversity, it matters, right? No one only is very lonely. Is very lonely. So getting some sort of critical mass is incredibly helpful. And it's not to say, right, that your non-Black colleagues are not allies. It's not to say that your male colleagues are not allies, but there are just some things that don't resonate. Right. So I love that idea that at least 3, you want some critical mass that you can caucus with. So I do think it matters. Being an only is not a place most of us want to be.
Yeah. So navigating to, and I'm reading some of the questions I have here, and we're just having this conversation lightly. Navigating then to the C-suite takes from what we just talked about. One, doing your homework and getting that education that you want. The second one would be you need support and allies. And the third one is you need to be courageous. And then what I heard you say is you need that rhythm of maybe more than yourself. So what's your philosophy of that woman that might be there in the C-suite for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, and she's the only one?
Wow. You know what? I think that if you are in that scenario, maybe you're not able to influence the environment, right? Because I have had the privilege of being in organizations where I may have gone in as the only person of color. In healthcare, you're not often the only female because we do have females. They may not lead the P&L side of the business, right? They might be on the staff side of the business, but needless to say, you're going to, typically find that you'll have females, but you can definitely be the only person of color. And what I did is I rallied my colleagues outside of the organization. And every time there was an opening, I would bring up, hey, Lisa's a great talent for this. Might we consider her for the opportunity? And doing that, we had a lot of diversity enter that organization. So I think if you're there 5-10 years, hopefully as you're building those relationships, you're able to have some influence. Yes. And then you either work with HR or you work with the nominating committee and you try to bring forward those other colleagues that you have and have influence to change that environment.
I agree. I mean, I think if you've been there 5 or 10 years and you're the only one in the C-suite, there's really fundamentally a problem.
There is,
and, to me, then the art of leadership is influence.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you are not influencing, then I'm not sure how you got there.
And also you have to understand, is it the intention of the individual, right? Exactly. That's a whole nother show, right? Are there people that like being the only?
That's right. I read.
You should be able to have some influence. Yeah.
Well, you're right. I mean, I read this article by the Center of Creative Leadership is what does the word B stand for when it comes from women? And at some point, the bossiness that's there might lead you to just want to be the only one, And I thought, I had to pause for a minute on that because it truly does matter about your intentions, right? So I want to leave that word with us, intentions. What are your intentions when you are in a leadership role? But let me ask you this. Many people look to find their purpose in life. We go through this thing called career journey.
Yeah.
And today you're making an impact. And I know your family, your daughters, everybody's proud, your husband. When did you realize, Denise, that you could really make an impact in the lives of people?
Wow. You know what? You mentioned my husband and my daughters, and I do tell everybody that I think that is where I seek, of course, to make the most impact. But I think from a professional perspective, it was fairly early on. The first opportunity that I had to lead a team,
Yeah.
and seeing the development of people that you're leading and just the pride that they have when they are being supported and invested in. It's the same way we feel, right? When your leader, when your sponsors, when your collaborators are saying to you, hey, Lisa, you're making an impact, right? Your viewership is going up, or the women that you're influencing and impacting, you get this all the time because we tell you the power of what you do to convene us and help us to tell our stories and to hear the stories of just not success, but struggle and triumph and how people have built a path. And so for me, I think that that's when I realized, and it was very early in my career, that leading people is definitely a gift, right? Because when you can lead people to their ability to do their best, that's influence, So I've certainly had the other successes around business successes, so getting good outcomes, but the joyful part for me is seeing people be their best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of us bring to the table attributes. What would you consider your superpowers to be?
Wow. I think one of my superpowers is definitely just my ability to connect with people.
Yeah.
We used to describe ourselves as people, or, we're, data oriented people or whatever. I deal with a lot of data, but I love people. And
Yeah.
so I think my superpower is just connecting, right? I try to individually create relationships, but I also connect people. We were talking before we came on air about a mutual colleague that we have, and just how we connect one another
Yeah.
for success. So I think that's my superpower.
Well, knowing you, and we met over time. I can't even recall how, but there was an immediate connection. One, because of the sorority, but two,
Yes.
I think just an affinity based upon values, right?
Yeah.
And watching you from afar, I would never think that you would have had a difficult time. But I know if we're all in this world, we do, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk success. Giving up is easy, right? And
Yeah.
so how have you gotten up every time you've fallen down? And what are some of your secrets for like keeping it moving? Because I know we all have that barrier, that limit that's put there, that obstacle, and you seem to just like smoothly go through it like without any problems.
Well, that's just because you don't see me all the time. But to your point, right? Life in general, both personal, and professional, is going to present challenges for us. And for me, it is having a positive attitude and really trying to live in gratitude.
Yeah.
So no matter how challenging a situation, is, and you're not normally going to necessarily be there right day one, but I do really honestly try to practice faithfulness and believe, right, that there's more to, be grateful for than there is, to be upset about in the short term. And so I try, don't say I get it perfectly, but, trying to live a life that is really based more on just gratitude, so being grateful for the people that are in your life, sometimes in the wake of losing people, that you love, but you celebrate, and you feel grateful for those that you have, grateful for the career, accomplishments that you've had when you're in a setback moment. I think that gives you the energy to push through that,
Yes.
because normally, right, you've had way more successes than you've had setbacks.
Yes.
And as we know, right, the setbacks set you up for the come up, so
That's true.
you have to. But I think if you allow yourself to, mindfulness is, really important. As we know, if you allow yourself to sit in the setback, you're not going to be able, to rebound, no matter what that might be, personal challenge or professional challenge.
Yeah, preach, girl, preach. Because I'm telling you right now, I heard this morning when I was listening to one of my favorite television evangelists. Sometimes, I wake up and I get that mood. But this message
Absolutely.
this morning, it's funny that you say that because the message was, about failure. failure does not mean the end.
That's
And
right.
that at the end of the day, if you don't learn from your failures, you will repeat them.
Exactly.
You were listening to that like, wow, that's true. But if you learn from your failures, you move past that, and then you move on to the destiny part of what you're supposed to do. So
That's right.
I see that, what you just shared about that faithfulness, that gratitude, and having the right attitude. I hope my listeners today, Kavana and all the people that are listening, thank you for joining us. And Denise is dropping some gems. Wouldn't you say that she's dropping some gems, and I'm so glad she decided to stop by the studio today. I have to ask a few fun things
Absolutely.
in this conversation, but the number one thing I think is interesting. If you had the chance to take someone to dinner for inspiration regarding success, who would that be?
Wow. Okay, so if I could take someone to dinner for inspiration around success, I think it would actually be Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
And why it would be Oprah, right? Is that if when we hear young Oprah and the trials, back to our earlier conversation, the trials that she had, growing up in a very tumultuous family, right, as it's described,
Yes.
not being what we may believe to be physically beautiful to some, so she dealt with, was her odd name Oprah,
Yeah.
was her, look or her ability to connect, something that was powerful. And she has just transcended all of those barriers. But she is the most giving person. Because what do we see Oprah do, right? She reveals all those stories, all of those wounds to us, and then it's inspiring.
Yes.
So I would love to be, at dinner with her, to your point, to just say, how did you do it? How did you keep yourself, in this kind of grounded, grateful, gratitude, inspirational place? And, even from a, much less active space, she is still pushing women to be and do their best.
Absolutely. I think she's one of mine. I got to think some more, but
and I have a long list, right? But if it's a one-on-one dinner,
yeah.
Like
I'm with
Oprah
you.
and I could do that.
Yeah, we could have some conversation, buddy.
We can have a good one. Exactly.
Definitely. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on the success of your daughters. I've watched from afar, and for people that are just chiming in, hi, Lisa Nichols and other people. I want you to know that Denise's daughters are very successful as well. So congratulations, because I know that that's based upon them watching you and their dad. And so congratulations to you on that.
Thank you so much.
Lastly, parting words. I leave with a career master moment. And I'd like you to tell us, what advice would you have for women who want to master their career?
I think if you want to master your career, then here's a quote that I try to live right by: to whom much is given, much is required. And it is really, I think, so much more about what you give than what you get.
Yeah.
And so from a career perspective, absolutely, we want to achieve the title, we want to achieve the success, but I think we also have to look at the legacy that we're leaving, and we should always be paying it forward. So just remembering that we have been gifted with a tremendous amount, and as much of that as we can give in terms of empowering and supporting other people, to me, that's going to help you be mastery in whatever it is that you're doing.
Wow. I thank you for joining us today, Denise Brooks-Williams, the SVP, Senior Vice President and CEO at Henry Ford Health Systems North Markets out of Michigan. We thank you for your time. I know that taken away from your regular, to-do is a big ask. And I thank you for finding that this show was relevant enough to be here. So I appreciate it. We're going to replay this. We'll make it available for you and your colleagues at other times. But thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next end.
Absolutely, my privilege. Thank you for having me.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. Wasn't that outstanding? I tell you what, if you didn't take the notes, go back and revisit this, rewatch this, because Denise dropped some gems. I mean, the bottom line is, we talked about failure. We talked about success. We talked about inspiration. We also talked about gratitude and paying it forward. So I love the fact that women can lead and still have their feet on the ground. And so I want to just thank her for being with us. I also want to thank Lisa Nichols and Kavana for joining us today, and all those others that I have not been able to see this morning yet. But I will go back and review. I want to be able to just share with you a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention about Career Mastered. The magazine is on sale right now for the fall, and we have a double take. This is our annual double take. On the cover is Albania Rosario. She is the president and CEO of Fashion Designers of Latin America. She has both covers, and you can pick up either one. She is fabulous, and we had her in the studio at the beginning of September. You should be able to go back and see that if you so please in terms of rewatch. One of the things I want to announce that we're really excited about is that Career Master Magazine will have the opportunity to present to the world HBCU queens and their stories. And we are doing that in a special edition that will come out between the end of the year and the first of next year. So hats off to the historical Black colleges and universities. We love working with you. And we can't wait to continue to have the discussion around the rich heritage of the education in the Black community. I also want to share with you that we will be making a big announcement on our next show with regard to a pitch competition. You will want to be a part of this. And so if you are employed, unemployed, transition employment, or you just want to get involved in this network of powerful women making a difference in the marketplace, this is the place to be. We'll see you next week as we talk with Von Nguyen, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Schoolcraft. We'll see you, and thank you for joining us. Bye now.